Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss the book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, written by L. Frank Baum, illustrated by W. Winslow? W. Denslow. That's who did this. This was finished May 15th, 1900, and we know that because there's a little blurb at the back, when the illustration company finished, like, the engravings, the prints for the actual book. 1900. This is a long time. 122 years ago is when this first book came out. So, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, right? We know the 1939 cult classic movie musical, The Wizard of Oz. There's been a Broadway version. There's been a ice tour in the 90s, which I went to. There was there's been numerous Oz books since the very first in 1900. And the Wicked book trilogy is loosely based off of this, which then throws into the cult classic Broadway musical, Wicked. That is a mixture of the book and the 1939 movie. The Wicked Witch of the West in Wicked and the 1939 movie is green-skinned with a black hat, right? That's not how the witch is, right? In the original book, like, the witch is, like, you know, she's got one eye and an eye patch and, like, polka dot dress and, like, clown fruffles and a pointed dunce hat. Like, you got one leg. Like, she looks like a pirate more than a witch. So, The Wizard of Oz, right? The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. When I was a kid, I read the first book, when I read this book, and I didn't really think much of it, because it was a book, right? I didn't really care about reading when I was a kid. So, I was obsessed with the movie, though. Obsessed. I had all the toys, I had all the dolls, I had all the soundtracks, the books, I had everything. And, I had figurines, but then when I got older, I started to read the books. L. Frank Baum wrote 14 Oz books, and that's what's helped. I mean, the Percy Jackson books and the vampire books really helped my interest in reading, but this is another starting point. Those three of them, the trilogy of those books. So as I'm reading now as an adult, I read all 14 of them in my 20s. Absolutely loved them, and I hated the character of Dorothy because she just whined so much. Now that I'm in my 30s and I'm rereading all 14 Oz books again, written by L. Frank Baum, and we're going to review all 14 of them, I don't not like Dorothy as much as I did back then. Like, I have a tattoo here, right here, right? This is a clover. This is from the 7th book, The Patchwork Girl of Oz. Pop points for that. We'll get into that. Love that book. That's my favorite Oz book. And I didn't hate Dorothy as much as I used to while reading this book again for the 80th time. So it's interesting. Now, what's very interesting the most about the book compared to the 1939 movie is that the 1939 movie is technically a remake because there was a movie, a silent movie in the 20s about this, in the 1920, one of those years. There was a silent movie version of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And then the 1939 movie was the first one to throw color and music into the mix for an adaptation of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Very interesting. What I also find interesting is this is a book that's perceived Oz as an actual place. In the movie, it's a dream. And I don't like that. I don't like that. So the older I got and the more that I read the books, the less I like the movie, which is interesting how things change. Dorothy gets taken up in a cyclone. Her and Toto land into Munchkin Land, which is the western part of Oz, right? The land of Oz. Quadling is the southern hemisphere. You have Winky in the east, and you have Gillikin in the north. Emerald City is in the middle. So all the yellow brick roads lead to the Emerald City. So we get lore. We get actual backstory. We get that the wizard came on a balloon when he was, a much younger man. He had all of the citizens of Oz make the Emerald City. So the Emerald City exists because of the wizard. The Wicked Witch of the West is in the land of the Winkies. She enslaved the Winkies. The Tin Woodman takes over, the Winky country after she's done. The Lion becomes the king of the beasts in Quadling country, which is where Glinda, the Good Witch of the South, not the Good Witch of the North, the Good Witch of the South inhabits. Scarecrow takes over the Emerald City after the wizard leaves in a balloon. But the other thing, though, the movie and the show, the musical, like the Broadway show, go very quick, and it happens like in a day, right? This book takes place over a month. Like, there's days of like waiting for something to happen, and there's days of like adventure. Like we go from one place to the next, and there's adventure. Like yes, Dorothy meets the Scarecrow, she meets the Tin Woodman, not the Tin Man, the Tin Woodman. That's his name in this. She meets the lion. Everybody gets their stuff. They have to kill the Wicked Witch. Okay, right? Basic plot points. But after the wizard leaves in his balloon, inadvertently, because the wind takes the balloon, they then have to figure out a way to get Dorothy home. So it's advised that they go talk to the Good Witch of the South, Glinda, and then they have to travel through the Quadling country, face all these different inhabitants. They go through China country. They go through, what are the creatures? There's a giant spider that they face at one point. The bowling pin looking creatures with the heads that just pop out. I forget their names. But like, there's a lot of murder in this. There's a lot of violence. That Tin Woodman's just killing animal after animal, like to protect everything. He kills 40 wolves at one point, 40 bees at one point. He chops off the head of a wildcat. The lion decapitates this massive spider who's like terrorizing people, like terrorizing animals. So it's very violent, but like it's cool because it's lore building, and it gives that Oz has a history. So after they get to the South Quadling to talk to Glinda, the Good Witch of the South, she says, "Oh yeah, you can just use your shoes, which are silver." The silver shoes of the Wicked Witch of the East, not red, as to the movie. They were originally silver. And Dorothy goes home, but she loses the shoes in transit because Oz is surrounded by a desert. That's why she can't actually get away from it. Because, like, she could travel by balloon, but, like, the wizard's balloon is gone. So how the hell does she get home? But there's also magic into this. And what's neat about this, that it's came out in 1900, technology is very limited back then. There weren't cars. There weren't cars. There were people wheeling around, you know, products in the Emerald City to sell in a cart. Or, what? There was, there's horses, there's different modes of transportation, but, like, they used a raft at one point to cross the river. What else? The Good Witch of the North, who is unnamed in this book, but she meets Dorothy in, Munchkinland when she first gets to Oz. She has a chalkboard, or a slate, as she calls it, and chalk is written on it that says, "Let Dorothy go to the Emerald City," or something like that. That's a tablet. That's a modern tablet. And for it to be described as just a slate with chalk that writes by itself, very interesting how things have changed. And that's very interesting moving forward in the other 13 books that he wrote, that L. Frank Baum wrote, because technology was imaginative back then. So one of my favorite lines in, I don't remember who wrote it, some science fiction author, magic is just science we don't understand yet. And I absolutely love it because we see it in these older folklore fairy tale books. This is an American fairy tale, as opposed to like the European fairy tales, Grimm's Brothers, Hans Christian Andersen, those kind of fairy tales. So like American lore, American folklore, folktale, fairy tales weren't really a thing until like this time period. Granted, you still have, the African American folklore of, Brer Rabbit, Brer Bear, John Henry, Keelboat Annie. Like you have all of that, but like it wasn't as mainstreamed as, the Wizard of Oz was, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. That was a big thing. L. Frank Baum was in Chicago, like it was published everywhere. So it was a big thing. So I will say it was very interesting reading this again in my 30s now, crossing each decade now. I don't hate Dorothy as much as I used to. So I'm very curious moving forward what's going to happen in regards to listing my favorite books. My favorite is still the 7th, hands down without a doubt. And I absolutely love the 2nd book, because Dorothy's not in it, but also it's a lot of adventure to it. The movie from the 80s, Return to Oz, kind of encapsulates book 2, 3, and 4 from what I remember. I am going to double check all that, but like that's an awesome movie because it's whimsical, it's creepy, it's disturbing at points. That's Oz. That's what Oz is. Tim Burton had a lot of influence of his character development, especially with The Nightmare Before Christmas, of Jack Skellington basing it off of Jack Pumpkinhead in the 2nd Oz book, which we'll get to. And the Patchwork Girl of Oz in the 7th book is very reminiscent to Sally, who is a patchwork girl. So it's really cool seeing what different pop culture artists are influenced from this franchise, as well as technology, seeing how far technology goes. You know, there's a character Tick-Tock of Oz. He's a mechanical man. What's a mechanical man? It's a robot. But we didn't use that term until like what, the 50s, 40s, something like that. But this book started in 1900. So it's very interesting having these science fiction, these fictions become non-fictions as time progresses and the legacy that it still ensues. So The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, incredible book. It's illustrated. It's a very quick read. It's very old. It's very old American English. So certain words we don't say anymore, but it's quick. It's very quick. The winged monkeys with their golden cap, that was a cute backstory. Not a cute backstory, but it was a nice backstory. It's nice getting history on things that we're familiar with, but needing to know more. I liked it. I really liked it. I love this franchise. I'm going to list all 14. We're going to see what my favorite to least favorite is. I don't know where this one lies yet, but on to the next. Mucho mahalo.